Hi, this is Professor Navarra. I thought I would make this really easy film to show you how to create your little 5-minute presentation since there was so many problems and mishaps yesterday with their presentations. Okay, so here's what's up. I'm showing you what time we're recording this. It's 4:14. You can see that, right? There we go. Maybe. There we go. It's 4:14. Nonetheless, so here's what I'm doing. I recorded my little 5-minute lecture on a really expensive program that nobody can find. It's called Audacity. Of course, this is actually a free program that's available online. If you click in your search engine and you type free audio editing software, it'll be your first link. I'm also using another really expensive, hard-to-find program called PowerPoint. So it's right here. PowerPoint, of course, is available to students, or at least for sort of a shareware program option for free at UNCW. So again, that's pretty hard to find also. These are the two slides that you saw yesterday, and I recorded the audio just with the microphone on my computer, nothing fancy, just sitting here talking. So I know there's a way to do this where you can actually interlace the audio within the PowerPoint file. You can actually record your slides as you're presenting and then export that as a movie file as well. But we're going to pretend that we don't know how to do any of that stuff because that's really complicated. So here we go. Let's just try it. Some very basic stuff and see how our little movie turns out and how we can upload it.
Next we have the 1935 Historic Sites Act. Now, this is basically establishing a national policy to preserve for the public. That's going to be one of the keys there for the public. Use historic sites, buildings, objects, and other things of national significance. So this is really going to lead to definitely some preservation. And also it was done as a way to put people in work or in jobs here. Basically, it gave people jobs to survey these areas and to take notes and detailed histories of these sites so that they could have their own little placards and things like you'll see in the PowerPoint that coincide with this material. And this was a great way after the Great Depression to pretty much put people in work. So that was kind of the main purpose of this act, was just to employ people. So it gave people a job going out there and looking up and surveying and taking notes for these specific historic buildings primarily. But, you know, it does say other things, but it's primarily historic buildings we're talking about here. And this would eventually lead to the establishment of the Interagency Archaeological Salvage Program of 1946. And again, this program in 1946 was really a way to get people employed once again. A lot of people were coming back from World War II, began to plan a national system of dams and flood controls and levees and things like that. So many archaeological resources might be destroyed by these endeavors. So this Interagency Archaeological Salvage Program, which again was a public program administered by the National Park Service and the Smithsonian Institute, really came into play and expanded greatly in the 1946 time frame. In 1946, it really expanded. When it was first sort of began and had its little burgeoning beginnings here, it was the Committee for Recovery of Archaeological Remains, and this was started and headed up by a gentleman named Frederick May in 1945. This was an independent agency, had nothing to do with the federal government at all. But it was basically trying to go behind or before these folks that were going out and building these dams and levees and the infrastructure of the United States at the time. And they were basically going out there to protect and conserve the archaeological remains and artifacts that were being disturbed by this sort of construction. Eventually this led to the River Basin Survey, or the RBS, which was a project funded by the Corps of Engineers and another group called the Bureau of Reclamation. All this was under the Bureau of American Ethnology. I know this is getting kind of long and intense. But the RBS, the River Basin Project, Its main function, again, was to protect archaeological material from destruction by dams and flooding. So, if you remember way back when, a little bit earlier here, in the 1945 was when folks were really starting to come back from World War II, and the U.S. was putting them to work, basically by working in these flood control areas, building these dams and levees and waterway systems and things like that to protect the infrastructure of the country. As a consequence, the Committee for Recovery of Archaeological Remains was formed, again an independent organization. The River Basin Project was its main impetus there to protect these areas. And eventually, in 1946, all this led to the formation of this interagency archaeological salvage program. And again, doing the same thing, except now it's federally funded, basically. Changed names, didn't really change function all that much.
All right, looks like we're finished with this big presentation. We're up to 6 minutes and 8 seconds. So now we're going to do the unthinkable. We're going to hit stop, and then we're going to email this file either directly to the link that I sent you, or you can email it to yourself and fool with it in another program if you want. But as far as I'm concerned, this project's done. So I'm going to email it to myself, and if it shows up on the YouTube channel, we'll be watching it.